So my next project, something small for a change, this lovely Art Deco table is going to have an overhaul, or restoration overhaul. So you can see at the top lots of watermarks and stains and so forth and so on. That one especially concerns me, and that one concerns me, but I think they might come out okay with oxalic acid. The edge banding veneer around here is around the rim, so this one looks okay. The top seems okay, it's intact. I don't know how thin it is, so I'm going to be very hand sandery on the top in no electrical equipment as much as I can. But the edge banding, there's issues all around it actually, so I'm just spinning it. problem, no, not big problem, but bits of little veneers, bits and bits, chunks, somebody's chewed on it, I don't know, something. That one's a big bit, there's another bit there, yeah. So all that needs attention, and then the rest of it is just filthy, dirty, gross, and it's going to be brought back to its beautiful self. Well, that's my intention is anyway. So starting with disassembling the curved legs from the top part, because I want to work on the top part first. So just doing a little bit of unscrewing there. So now that I've got the legs off, I've just got the top to focus on. I am a bit of an impatient person, so I want to get stuck straight into that. So I'm just going to use a hand sander, as I said. I don't know how many times this has been restored in the past, if any, so I've got no way of knowing how thin the veneer is and how close to the burning the surface of the veneer I could be. So I just want to go nice and easy. So the grit on this sandpaper is a 120, which I generally wouldn't do anything less than that when working on a veneer, and I'm not pressing too hard either. Just keen to scratch the surface, see what does come off, and get some oxalic acid onto it to see what stains come out. So I've already started applying some oxalic acid onto this. I'm pretty keen to just see what I have left to work with, and the oxalic acid, which is a crystallized substance mixed with water that you use to remove certain types of stains from wood, such as rust stains, water-based stains, or iron stains. Once the oxalic acid removed the stains that it can remove, that then gives me a clearer picture of any other repair or work I might have to do, even potentially swapping out the veneer, which I don't think I'm going to have to do, but just saying. So now that the oxalic acid is on, I will be leaving that for overnight. I won't even look at that now until tomorrow morning. Give it time to work. So while that tabletop is drying, I'm going to take the legs off of the bottom. So I've only detached the legs from the top of the table so far. I now want to detach them from that little circle on the bottom, and also detach the little feet from the legs as well, so that everything's separated and I can clean everything, sand everything, stain everything, etc. So they're all detached now. I did actually have the help of my very kind neighbour who popped down to use his brute strength on some of the screws because I couldn't undo some of them. Some of them, they haven't been moved in a long time. Anyway, you know, that's just how it is sometimes. And yeah, he got them off, no worries. And I'm pretty strong. I'm just showing you some of there's a couple of little bits of veneer damage or edge banding damage on this as well. And I'm just contemplating whether it's small enough to just use wood filler or whether I need to pop some veneer on there. I'll get to that later. A little bit of sanding, the same as the top one. I'm just flipping this over and just getting rid of all the glue using the electric sander on the underside. There's a lot of glue sticky up bits that I just want to sand down without impacting the timber too much. So I'm ready to do something with the legs at the moment. So I've got the bottom circles now got oxalic acid on it, same as the top did. So I'm waiting for that to all soak in. And with these legs, I can use the electric sander with these legs because they're solid wood. There's no veneer. And not only that, I'm using the sander because they're very old and the lacquer on the timber is very, very thin. And you can see I've barely touched that and it just came right off. So it won't even cost me one sanding sandpaper. So I'm going ahead with all of that, getting off what I can. I haven't been able to work out how to get the feet off yet. I'm going to, miraculously, I'll figure it out very soon. I haven't been able to figure it out. I've undone all the screws and yes. Anyway, you'll see what happens. It's quite embarrassing. Accidentally find out how to get them off. I've struggled to get that foot off and I'm about to be stunned because after hours and hours of trying to get it off, I just popped it off with the lightest taps of the hammer. Goodness, goodness. You didn't see the hours. Luckily, I didn't film the hours and hours of trying to get it off. So with this one, there was a little screw in there, and when I pulled it out, I noticed a longitudinal split just there, just in that where I'm kind of in the middle of where I'm showing you. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just there, yep, it's quite a long one. I'm going to go ahead and put some glue in that and clamp it and leave that for the night. So I did go ahead and pop the glue in there off camera. I didn't do it off camera for any particular reason. I just forgot to press record. So I'm just in the clamping process now. But what I did do, instead of using an injection or a little syringe, of glue to put that in there, which would have probably worked, I actually used a very tiny screwdriver that I have, pushed it into the hole and just did a little twist to separate the split and then packed some glue in there. And then I've wrapped it in some painter's tape just to protect the clamps from sticking for no other reason. And now I'm just applying the glue and I'm applying it both ways so that it doesn't dry crooked. It looks like I over clamp it in the end, but really sometimes you can't have enough clamps, especially when you want to set timber to timber. I'm just popping some oxalic acid on the legs and feet now And I almost, to be honest, don't need to do that. I'm doing it because I did put oxalic acid on the top circle and the bottom circle. So I just feel like I should complete that with the whole furniture piece now. It's just really a game of even Stevens and probably a little bit of a waste, but that's what I'm doing. So just sanding off the leg that I'd glued and clamped, just sanding off the residual glue, and that has set beautifully overnight, and it's perfect. You can't tell that it had any damage to it, and it matches in beautifully with the others now. So finally, the legs are ready for stain. They're all beautiful, cleaned, sanded, glued, clamped, what have you, and the pieces of timber I believe on this Art Deco table are walnut timber. So based on that assumption, I'm going in with walnut stain. It looks divine in real life. I'm not sure if that's coming across on camera. It's and I just want to comment about these legs. Whoever came up with the idea of bending timber for legs, and particularly during the Art Deco period, which is one of my favourite periods. It's just gorgeous. They're just lovely. The wood is beautiful. The table is lovely. The way the wood is bent is beautiful. It really is a pleasure working with these types of these designs. And kudos to the I'm going to call them artists, but furniture makers that even came up with these designs. Beautiful. So I'm brushing it all on. I've started to do a bit of sanding on the edge banding here because I'm having a bit of a look to see what I need to do here. I've also gone and put a little bit of bog or what's it called? What's bog called? Wood filler. Oh gosh. In a couple of there's teeny tiny little gaps in this edge banding. I really couldn't probably cut the veneer as small as what it requires. So I've decided to just put some wood filler in the gaps and just sand it off and see how that looks as a start on the small one, only on the small one. The damage wasn't drastic on the small one as it was with the big ones, just the tiny little tiny chips. So I think that might work out. I'll add to that too that I'm using a very fine sandpaper on this edge banding. I think I might have used a 180 at the very least. I'm happy to report that this small little foot circle came up absolutely perfectly. I'm going straight in with the walnut stain. The edge banding using the wood filler technique turned out perfectly. And I meant to say before, I said I couldn't cut them that small. What I meant was it's very difficult to glue them that small. Look at that. That's turned out stunning. And now I'm just going to do the edge. And honestly, it's all turned out perfect. Absolutely perfect. So what I've gone and done off camera was the same process that I did with the small circle. So this is now the top circle. So by no means is this an adequate repair just yet, but the top circle on the edge has also got teeny tiny little chips out of it here, there, and everywhere. So I've decided to fill those in before I go in with the veneer repair, just to see how they turn out as well. And they're coming up okay, which will get clear in a minute, hopefully. So I've gone ahead and put walnut stain on the top, which looks fantastic. And I'm now going to put walnut stain on the edge banding. Now, by no means have I repaired the edge banding yet properly, but I've decided to it's a bit backward and it's a bit skew-if probably, and on paper it's probably not the right way to do it, but it's what I've decided is going to work for me on this occasion. So what I want to do is stain it all so I can see the imperfections, and once they're stained they're going to be easier to see and I can repair the veneer. So that's and then I'll have to resand and restain. I know, but for me that works because once it's sanded, it's so white. It just looks like sand. It's very hard to pick up the individual imperfections. So this will work for me. So as promised, this section of veneer right here is absolute rubbish and it needs to come out, and it's really popping because I've put stain on. I could have used water, but it just keeps drying, so it's hopeless. So I prefer to use the stain. So I've scratched the surface. I've cut out as much veneer as I can. That veneer looks like it's still there on that spot, but it's actually a stain or a shadow of it. And I've scored it as well to make sure that it's that the new veneer piece that I've cut out to shape will fit. And I'm putting glue on where I'm going to put the new piece of veneer as well as on the piece of veneer. Important to do all of the surfaces. I've got a bit of excess glue on the veneer, so I'm using that. Glue and stick. So I just need to hold it there for a minute until it sort of grabs, and then I'll set about figuring out the best way to clamp that. But that looks pretty smart. That looks lovely. And it's proper. It's good. But the painter's tape is not sufficient enough to create a bond between the timber veneer and the table. So a little bit of more reinforcement is required, but it's a very good start. You can see that I've gone ahead and put a couple of clamps in place there. I've used that little plank to put pressure on the veneer to hold it in place, and then some clamps around that to just really make the bond stick. So it's the next day, and moment of truth, the painter's tape is coming off the veneer. So I have more than one veneer repair to do on this table, but this one is the biggest one and probably the one that I'll end up using as a demonstration. And I've just gone and forgotten that the camera's not on the table, and I think I'll wake up any second. I think I suddenly wake up. There you go. Sorry about that. Hard to think of everything sometimes. think we've got it. There we go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Doesn't look perfect yet because it hasn't been stained, but that is perfect. Now it's a little bit raised, does need a sand, but that is lovely. I also did one earlier. I spotted one and I just thought I want to add it to this one as well. Just a little one. I had a bit of a rethink, so that also needs a stain. Okay, so there, that's done. So you can see from that process that repairing veneer is not that difficult. It really is just a case of preparing the area well, making sure it's ready to receive the veneer, whatever that looks like, and then gluing it and clamping it. So really, veneer is not that scary. Just got a little teeny tiny repair to do here, so I'm just using a little like quarter of a centimetre of veneer really for this bit. It could almost just have wood filler, but I've decided I will fill this one. So I've just cut out a piece to fit and I'm just going to glue it in. And that will receive a clamp later on as well. So I might just speed that up for you. So I'm just doing this little bit here now too. Same process. I'm cutting out the old, very thin bit of veneer, and I'm also scoring a little bit whatever's left as well, just to give it something sort of structurally to adhere to, giving it something substantial to adhere to, the new veneer. So now just getting the shape, just cutting out the shape of the veneer to make it an exact fit as much as I possibly can. It's a lot of eyeballing, honestly. Well, that's how I do it anyway. So I've glued it and I'm just holding it in place for a bit until it grabs. Painter's tape. That was just a little tiny, like quarter of a centimetre of veneer there. So I've gone ahead and clamped all of those little veneer repairs, and what I've done is I've put a bit of flexible plastic over the top of all the veneer repairs and then pressed the clamps up against each repair to just really push it in, which works well.